Hi, and welcome to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I'm Dupe Witherick, alcohol free wellbeing and transformational coach, and the best selling author of A Cocktail of Clarity, How to Ditch Drinking, Embody a Joyful New Identity, and Thrive Alcohol Free. This podcast will show you that being alcohol-free is not what the traditional narrative says. And even though alcohol is so ingrained in our society that it is okay to give yourself permission to stop drinking if you want to. And you do not have to wait until you hit rock bottom. It is certainly not boring, and I believe ditching drinking is just the start to living an extraordinary life. By getting rid of this one thing, it allows the doors to open to endless possibilities and opportunities. Each week, we will have guests on who are at various stages of the alcohol-free journey, from those who are curious to those who have been alcohol-free for years. We will also have experts on talking about different topics relating to alcohol and beyond. Through these conversations, you will discover what it means to thrive alcohol-free. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I'm Dupe, your host, and I'm delighted you are here listening. I hope you've had a good week, and I wanted to ask you, how are you feeling? We all get asked, how are you? And the instant response is, yeah, fine, I'm okay, yeah. And no one really answers. But I want you to think about it. I want you to think today, how are you feeling? And if you have recently stopped drinking, or you are thinking you want to take a break, then I really encourage you to answer that question every day. At the end of each day, I suggest journaling the answer to that question. How are you feeling? Think about it, reflect on it, and just honestly answer. And then also you could think about, what was the day like? What triggered you potentially? And when did you feel like reaching for a drink? And then what did you do? And just by monitoring this on a regular basis will help you to think about how things are slightly changing and maybe perceive the benefits or perceive drinking in a slightly different way. So I would certainly encourage you to journal. And if you don't want to write it down in a traditional journal, or you don't like writing, you could always make a note on your notes on your phone, or you can do a voice memo. So if you recently stopped drinking, you've taken a break, and you're just not really sure whether you want to continue, or you're struggling a little bit, maybe start journaling about it and reflecting on those questions. And then the other thing I'd encourage you to do is to track your progress and to celebrate your progress, because as humans, we have these goals and we have these aims, we set these goals, but we never really track or celebrate the journey. So if I think about me running a marathon, the marathon was the end thing. It was the 18 weeks training up until the marathon that was the thing. And actually acknowledging that you were doing more and more kilometers, etc., or you were doing it slightly faster or whatever, they were all things to celebrate. So I encourage you to track your progress. And it's really a fun way to keep on track and see how much money you've saved, maybe how much time you've saved, and the number of days you've done alcohol free, and just track it. And so you can do that through a tracking app. So the app I recommend is I Am Sober app, and you can also add your why. So you've got something you can see every day in terms of why you're doing it. And then you get motivational quotes as well, which can encourage you. So you can download that. But by tracking it, you will then notice all the milestones you're hitting, and you'll be able to really feel proud of how far you've come, because it's not going to be an easy journey the whole way, but just being encouraged that you are moving forward. So I would absolutely suggest you journaling about how you're feeling each day, and then also keeping track. And those two things will hopefully help. I do have a PDF 21-day tracker where you can physically print that off and physically tick off the 21 days if you want. And if you'd like that, then feel free to get in touch with me. You can DM me or at Thrive Alcohol Free, but try that and see how you get on. And I'd love to hear if that's helpful for you as well. The other thing I wanted to let you know, as we are hitting the summer, and I have just done the Summer Fun Summit, I wanted to give you the opportunity to get the 10 must-have mocktail recipes. So if you've recently stopped drinking, if you've been alcohol-free for a while and you want some recipes to use over the summer, now that we're hitting that season, and even though the weather here has been cold and a bit wet, not too summer-like, we are in summer. So I have my 10 must-have mocktails, and I'd love to share that with you. So I will leave the link below for you to access that. And it's just a perfect way to get into the summer season. Okay, well, I hope there's some helpful tips for you and some helpful resources. So today is a slightly different episode. I have two guests. So I have Zoe Godfrey and Donna Espin-Smith, who are the guests today. And Zoe, I've known for nearly 4 years now. So I met her when I stopped drinking, and we then went to a sober retreat as well, and actually met in person. So we met online originally, and yeah, we got on really well. And so I'm really pleased Zoe's on. And Donna is her co-host of their podcast, the Sober Coaches podcast. So we have a really fab conversation, and it's always good when it's a slightly different conversation, i.e. you have more than one guest. So I'll just read a bit about both of their bios and then we'll go into the conversation. So Zoe is a dedicated sober coach and will guide you on your journey to enjoying an alcohol-free life. Are you fed up of the same old cycle of booze, booze, and more booze? From her own personal experience of ditching the booze, she understands the challenges you face, but wants to make it clear that addressing the elephant in the room is so worth it. A proud mother of 2 sons, 2 dogs, and a cat, Zoe loves her garden and being out in nature. Zoe's also a qualified yoga teacher who's passionate about both mental and physical health and well-being to enable you to live your best life, to live a life you don't want to escape from. So that's Zoe. And Donna is 20 months alcohol free. She has had periods of abstinence in the past, but after realizing she had an unhealthy relationship with alcohol that was keeping her stuck, she finally decided to ditch it for good. She became a sober coach in September 2022 to help and show other women who are stuck in the alcohol trap how they can live a happy, healthier life alcohol free. So I'm delighted that I've got both Zoe and Donna on, and that we're all sober coaches. So without further ado, here is the episode with Zoe and Donna. Enjoy. Okay, so welcome Zoe and Donna. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. How are you both?
We are good, aren't we, Don? I was just about to talk at the same time as you, probably.
You're really good. Lovely to be on here.
Great. And I love these. I've done this before with the Be Sober girls. And so it's lovely to do it with another couple of beautiful girls. Why don't we, for people that don't know you, why don't we start with what brings you here and why you're on the podcast? So a bit about your journey. Who wants to go first?
So.
Me. Oh, thanks, Dupe. Well, we met a long time ago, Dupe, were we on a sober retreat? Have we gone?
We did, yeah. We met at Champneys.
Champneys in Tring, haven't we? We met there, and we were both part of the sober club then. And I remember you saying, well, I'm just going to stop drinking for about 30 days. I think that's enough. That's all I want to do. Look.
I'll never live that down, will I? And I did actually say 21, but so even
was
less.
It 21? Was it? Yeah, I couldn't remember how long it was. So yeah, haven't we changed?
Yes, what a difference.
But no, we had a really good weekend, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit later on with the connection piece. But do you want to hear my story? Is that the kind of the sober journey?
I mean, what brings you to I know. But what brings you to being on Thrive Alcohol Free podcast specifically? Because I generally have people who have stopped drinking. So there must be a story to it, Zoe. What happened? Why did you stop? Where did it come from? How was it? What was the start like? Anything you want to share, really?
Well, I did have a really great drinking career, and it went on for quite a long time, from my teens up until my 40s. And when I hit my I was always the one that would not just take one bottle of wine, I would take two. I would always be the person that if there was a picnic, there would be a bottle of fizz in there. It was ingrained in everything that I did from an early age. I think maybe some of it was the confidence side of things, and I think a lot of what I did, I mean, it is still ingrained in society, but a lot of my jobs that I did as well, there was always alcohol there, and that helped as well because I was out of my comfort zone quite a lot with, like, you feel sometimes when you're younger. So that would help with my confidence. And it was just always I was always, I was pretty good at it, really. But when I hit my 40s, that was when I kind of found I really cared about my fitness a bit more. I'd always been really active. I'd always done loads of fitness classes, but I did sort of seem to care a bit more about my health. And I really thought I am drinking too much. I probably wasn't in the big scale of things in the big scheme of things, when you look at what everybody else drinks, I probably wasn't drinking any more than the average person. But for me, I felt as if I was drinking too much and it was time to do something about it. And it took me another 5 years to actually do anything about it. And I did Sober October. And that was probably the hardest month I've ever done because I just didn't realize I did it because I knew I was drinking too much. And I knew if people sponsored me, I wouldn't let them down. And from there, it made me, I can't remember how much I raised now, but a friend of mine, we were on a dog walk and I was telling her I'm going to do this Sober October, and we were laughing. And she flicked me a tenner and said, "There you go. You've got to do it now. There's your first sponsor." And it all started from there. So it's all her fault. And we continued that month of her supporting me. She was brilliant. And everybody knew. Quite often we say to people, well, you don't have to tell anyone if you don't want to, but everybody knew anyway. And when we got to the end of the 30 days, a friend of mine said, "Oh, brilliant," sent me a message saying, "Oh, brilliant, you can drink now." And I was like, actually, I'm not going to rush back to it. I don't think I will go back to it. And that was when everyone got a bit shocked when the month was over. But during that month, there were so many emails and messages you get because you're quite well supported with these Sober Octobers because it's for cancer research. So they send you different links and things like that. So I'd looked up lots of different things about not drinking, and I'd got the bug. I was starting to read and learn. I'd joined a couple of free groups. There wasn't that much around then. There wasn't that many alcohol-free options, that's for sure. But I didn't really want them then. I kind of got into that a bit later down the line. I still like to have my wine glass whenever I was cooking tea. That was my little thing. Whatever I had to drink, it would be in a wine glass. That was a big thing for me. And yeah, I didn't go back to it. And I haven't looked back. It's weird. I really haven't looked back. And now I can't imagine drinking. It's not part of me anymore. Which is weird because it was a big part, or I thought it was anyway. And that led me to do my sober coaching training with Janie Lee Grace. And that's where I met Donna because we were on the same sober coaching training together. So that's where our piece comes together. We can talk about that later if you want to, Don, once you've done your story. But yeah, I haven't looked back since then. And the training was a little bit like coaching as well. It helped me to really secure what I wanted to do and to move forward. And it helped me to look at some of the things that I needed to address as well. So it's fantastic. Yeah, I'd urge anyone that was interested in that to go for that, because that's opened so many more doors, and it's really made for a really exciting career. So the sober coaching I did in 2022, I think, wasn't it, Don? So yeah, I've been coaching since then. I haven't really ramped it up. It took me a long time to get my website up and running. And then I did yoga teacher training course last year. So I've now run sober yoga days, which I love. And there's such a lovely connection with the two. So that's really special. We've just held one of those. And obviously we've got the podcast, and I'm developing a few other things and a few other events that are coming up. So it's all really exciting. Absolutely love it.
Amazing. And we'll let Donna tell her story, but I'm fascinated when you said it was the hardest month ever for Sober October. So we'll come back to it, but I found that a really interesting conversation, especially when you then said, but then I carried on. So I'd love to hear what changed. I know you said you did a lot of research and started learning things, but it's interesting when people stop drinking, especially for things like Dry January and Sober October, you can find that, well, for me, I never actually did it. I would only do like a week or week and a half or something, then I'd find an excuse to not. But I think a lot of people do white knuckle it, and it's like holding on for dear life as you go through, and it isn't as enjoyable as it could be. So yeah, we'll come back to it. But Donna, why don't you share your story?
Okay. So, yeah, I've been really trying to work out when my drinking ramped up. So I'm 41, 42 this year. I got divorced at the age of 30, which left me at home with my I'd have had 2 kids by then. I've now got 3. So I think looking back, I mean, I've always been a party girl. So age of 14, I started getting interested in boys and alcohol. 16 definitely ramped up. So I've always been one of these social butterflies, massive party girl, the raving scene. Met my husband in my early 20s, and that's when I got married and had my kids. So it did slow down a little bit, obviously, around my marriage and having children, but I still loved socializing and I loved going out. So I feel that probably the drinking ramped up from 30 onwards, because I then got divorced. I moved out the family home, and I was with my 2 children. So when they'd go to the dad's, I'd be out partying and numbing and escaping, because having 2 children on your own is really hard. They were so young as well. My little boy was only, I think he was 11 months old, and my other boy was about 3.5, 4. So very young, 2 boys together, absolutely full of it, you can imagine. So alcohol, I think, I know was an escapism. It was a way to numb, a way not to feel the emotions. And also as well, I'd had a failed marriage. So it was kind of like numbing from that as well. And so this time round, I'm 20 months sober, and I'm not going back. But I have tried the moderation piece. I've not drank several times, and I think the longest was 9 months before, over COVID, funny enough. And I think I managed to do that personally because there was no pubs open, there was no distractions. And even though everybody was drinking at home and ramping up at home, I still remained sober. But then as soon as lockdown had ceased and we all went back to normal, the sun was shining, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it another go. Surely I've done 9 months. Surely I'll be able to do it. Anyway, I kind of kidded myself. I'd get a few cans of gin from the co-op, and I thought, oh, this is all nice and in control. But slowly and surely, let's fast forward a year basically, and I was back to where I was before, if not worse. So what went from a few little cans of gin would then go to a bottle of gin. And at first I didn't drink wine. And then I was drinking bottles of wine again, because the taste of wine, when you've had such a period of abstinence, was vile. It was just disgusting. But a bit like when I used to smoke, and I'd go back again, it tastes disgusting, but you'd soon get used to the taste. The more you have, the more you get the taste back. Yeah, so it ramped up again. And it was around my 40th birthday celebrations. And I knew the beginning of the year, my birthday's in July, that I should really be quitting the booze for good. I knew it deep down, but obviously I didn't want to do it because I had my 40th birthday celebrations coming up. And I thought to myself, do you know what? I'll have all my celebrations, and then in September, that's it. I'm going to quit. But it didn't work like that. So I managed to get to Ibiza for my 40th, which, to be fair, I had a really good time. But as you can imagine, very boozy. And I came back and it was like I was still in Ibiza partying. So I was a daily drinker. I would drink daily. So not from the minute I woke up. I'd drink probably anywhere from tea time onwards, say. But I found it really hard to not drink every day. I think I got in such a bad habit of it. It was my reward. It was my coping mechanism. It was for being a parent. It was for working because I've got my own business. So it was probably, yet again, a coping mechanism. And every morning I'd wake up and I'd say, I'm not having a drink today. And then I'd find about 3 o'clock would come. Oh, do you know what? Go on, give yourself a reward. You've had a busy day at work. Oh, you know, the kids. And then if the kids had their hobbies, it was terrible. I'd be thinking, right, we'll take them to football. And then on the way back, we'll nip to Tesco and we'll get a bottle of wine. And I was always thinking about alcohol. So the only time I'd ever have a break from alcohol was if I had a 3-day hangover. And I had them quite a lot. I was functioning. It was strange because I look back and I was still going to work. I still functioned. And I probably wasn't as sprightly as what I am now, but I managed to do it. And probably the more that I drank, the more that I could drink because my body had got used to the volume. But it was actually my son that had commented and said to me, Mum, you're drinking a lot again. And that was it. That was all it took for me to actually sit back because I knew what the answer was anyway. And I said, do you want me to give up? And he said, yes. And that was it. As simple as that. So I rang a lady who I know who's near 20 years sober now. And I went to an AA meeting with her that weekend. And to be honest, it wasn't for me, but it kind of started me off. It started me in the motions. I started reading the books, listening to the podcasts again. Because I'd done this before, I don't think I listened to podcasts the time before, actually. I think I just read the books. I don't know if podcasts were out back then. I think it's quite a new thing, isn't it, podcasting? But I did everything I possibly could to stay accountable. And I probably did white knuckle it a little bit for the first couple of weeks. But at the same time, I felt good. I look back on some of my journals on Instagram and some of my journals that I've done, and I think there were happy days. You weren't just white knuckling every day. It wasn't like I was struggling. It's just, I think, the self-development piece, allowing my emotions, allowing to feel, because I'd never allowed myself to do that before. And this is the biggest thing for me, which I've got from being alcohol free, is the freedom that I feel, absolute freedom, because alcohol, I felt, had kept me stuck. I felt controlled by it. I'm a very spiritual person, so I wasn't allowing myself to grow as a person. I was keeping myself quite small, to be honest. Whereas now I feel my personal growth has expanded massively. I'm a better mum because I'm obviously there for the kids. I'm present. I mean, my eldest, he's nearly 16, so you can imagine he's, out doing his bits and he rings me up, Mum, can I have a lift? And it's 10 o'clock at night. Well, if I was drinking, I couldn't have done that. So I can be there for him, and they need the mum, the kids need the mum. They need me to be present. And I wasn't when I was drinking because of the volume that I was drinking. So I feel a bit like Zoe. I decided to go into sober coaching, but I did it really early on. I think I was only 2-3 months sober at that time when I actually went into the coaching. But me and my personality, when I get fixated on something, I'm very impulsive. So if I'm doing it, I'm doing it. And I thought I need something to keep me accountable. I need something to get my teeth into. And I decided to do the sober coaching. I even went on a holiday about 6 weeks into my sobriety. So I actually look back and I can't believe I did that. But that's just me. Like I say, if I'm doing it, I'm doing it. And since then, it's just been amazing. Just really chucked myself into the sober coaching recently in the last few months. I've got a few clients, which is lovely. And obviously me and Zoe have started this podcast, which is also amazing. So it's opened a lot of doors, and this isn't going to be the only thing I do. I just can feel it. I know it's going to open myself up to a lot more growth. But I think that's it in a nutshell. I think I've covered
so exciting. It's so exciting. And isn't it amazing that by doing this one thing, making this one decision, it changes everything? You talked about so many things changing, but then just how much personal growth, you mentioned that a few times, and then also your children, and gosh, your son, he was very brave, wasn't he, really, to say to you, mummy, can you stop because you're drinking too much again? And so he's obviously seen you before, knows you can stop, and has seen that. And then it's great that you're so present with him, and as you say, being able to pick him up at 10 p.m. and not feel like you can't do that is fantastic.
Absolutely, because he's on his own journey with being nearly 16, and he's had a few moments of trying alcohol himself, and that's fine. He's got to have his own journey in that sense, hasn't he, and got to sample life. But I'm hoping that he sees me as a bit of an inspiration and sees that you don't need to drink. There's a whole different world out there, isn't there?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's the difference, isn't it? It feels like the younger generation are actually more mindful about it than we were. I felt when I was a teenager, that was just the rite of passage. That was just the thing you do. Once you become an adult, there's like this expectation that you're going to drink. There wasn't a choice. And so, to your point with your son, you're showing him that there is an alternative and there is a choice. And I do believe the alcohol-free movement is growing. And to what Zoe said earlier, there were hardly any alcohol-free drinks. I was a judge at the World Alcohol-Free Awards, and the results came out the other day. And it was fabulous because there were so many products from 21 different countries, and I must have tasted 50 plus products when I was judging in a day.
Wow.
And we gave them medals, and it was all blind tasting, of course, so didn't know what you were tasting, but it was fascinating. And this space, seeing the number of coaches that are focusing on sober coaching, alcohol-free coaching, is fantastic. So I do hope, for our children's sake, that the world gets to a point where actually you have the choice and you can do what you want to do, and you don't need to feel pressured, because there's this automatic assumption that once you hit 15, 16, you're going to drink. And why is that? I remember someone at work saying to me, this was a few years ago, and his child was 1, maybe 2 maximum. And he said, I can't wait to take him to the pub when he's 18. And I was sort of thinking, you're planning this for him. We're 14, 16 years out, and that is what you're looking forward to when you've got a 2-year-old. To me, it just was the most bizarre comment, you know?
Yeah, take him to the pub, but let him have a Coke or let him have an alcohol-free beer. Or
No, it was literally a pint of beer. I can't wait to get him a pint of beer when he's 16, 18, whatever it was. And I was just like, oh, wow, okay, there we go. So there's still a lot of work to do, but it's really exciting that there are more of us at least talking about this and looking to grow in this space and actually see and are able to share the benefits. So thank you for sharing that.
When Jay went to college on an open day, the teacher who was doing the bricklaying, he was basically saying to the lads, we like to get it finished on time, because let's face it, we all want to get down to the pub. And I was thinking, oh my God, like straight away. The mentality, isn't it? It's like, oh my God.
It is. It's really just an expectation, isn't it? There isn't the expectation that you wouldn't drink.
Yes,
there's the expectation that it's that the starting point is, well, of course you're going to have a drink. And so that's the difference. So Zoe, maybe we come back to you and you can tell us a bit about why it was the hardest month, and then maybe any tips that you have for the person listening so that it wouldn't be the hardest month if they decide to take a break.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any other support other than the links that I was sent of a couple of alcohol-free groups. And obviously I knew I was drinking a lot, and I wasn't necessarily, I would have a couple of days off. I would have all sorts of different rules that I would put in place. So only drink at the weekends, but the weekend would start on a Thursday. Or, oh, well, we'll have wine Wednesday. So we won't drink Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. We'll have wine Wednesday. But I didn't realize until I did the Sober October how close I probably was to really needing it. And every time I would cook tea, I was just in a routine of pouring a glass of wine. It was my little routine. So 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever time I got in the kitchen, I would pour a glass of wine. And that hit really hard all of a sudden, oh, I'm not having my glass of wine, but I've still got to cook tea. I hate cooking, by the way. It's my least favorite thing to do. And I guess by having that glass of wine, I used to think, oh, well, I'll get through it because I'm having something that I like. So that made it very difficult. And I think one of the ways that I got round that was by still having a wine glass, but having something else in it. So it still felt like a bit of something. I don't know what it is about holding a wine glass, but that meant something. And I also, many times in that first month, poured a glass of wine and poured it down the sink. Or I even poured a glass of wine. What was I making? Spaghetti bolognese, I think. And obviously, I would always keep a different wine because I'd have the nice wine and put a different wine in the food. But that day, I remember thinking, gosh, I would always put a glass of wine in my spaghetti bolognese, but I didn't drink it, whereas I would normally be drinking wine as well. And now I don't really cook with wine at all. I think the last time I cooked with wine, I had one of those small bottles of white wine. White wine was usually my drink, although red wine was as well, but predominantly it was white wine. And I poured this white wine into the risotto and I gagged. The smell, the fumes from it was just unbelievable. And that was really, really interesting because that's what made me think, oh my goodness, I used to tip a lot of this down my throat and I couldn't even bear the smell of it now. So that was interesting. But yeah, that first month, I literally would talk to myself and I would say to myself, just do not pour it. Just don't even pour it. Don't even think about pouring it because it would still be in the house because my husband still drinks, albeit he doesn't drink as much as when I was drinking. But yeah, it was a hard thing that month. And really, I was still in my routine. I hadn't really added any new things in. I wasn't really doing anything different in that first month. I hadn't changed anything up particularly. And what I did used to do was I brought my eating times forward. So I would eat earlier because I knew once I'd eaten dinner, I probably wouldn't want a glass of wine. And I'd have a bath and I would go to bed early. I started getting in the bath a bit more often. And I always joke to say I used to get in the bath on a Friday night with William Porter because at that time he was doing Facebook Lives. So he would do a Facebook Live on a Friday night and I'd be in the bath listening to it. And that's how I got through that first month, really. I found it very difficult. I didn't really talk to anyone. I didn't know about the Sober Club until later. I think I joined the Sober Club in the November, possibly the December, something like that. And when I found that connection, that made a huge difference for me. Hearing other people's stories, hearing that other people were further ahead of me and how great they were feeling, that was a real motivator for me. And I'd always been on Facebook, but with that group, because it was a private group as well, you kind of felt as if you could talk openly to people and everyone would support each other. And I think that probably was one of the main things for me. And looking back on my journal, it was the connection. It was definitely the connection that was needed. And I think a lot of people shy away from that, depending, I mean, it doesn't really matter how you get sober. What it is how you are once you've got sober. How do you feel about it? It doesn't really matter how you get there, but there are things that can help you. And I think that's becoming more and more open and people are aware of it and more open to talking about it now. Whereas before, a lot of people would be quiet about it. And I can understand that in a way. If you don't want to go down and have a big Spanish Inquisition of why you're not drinking that night, you can say, I'm on antibiotics or I'm driving. You don't have to open up to people, but in the right platforms, in the right place, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, and they say the opposite of addiction is connection, and it's not that necessarily that people are addicted to it. It's an addictive substance, and so the more you drink, the more addictive you will become to it, because that's the way it works. It's fascinating though that you knew to pour the drinks in a wine glass, because our inner child, it's all part of our subconscious. Our inner child is feeling like they're missing out, or they're not having what they should have, and this is what happens at this point, and why is it not happening? But you're tricking the mind with the wine glass, because you are then saying it feels like you're having an adult drink. And again, why are wine glasses so associated? Why can't you not have any drink in a wine glass? Why does it have to be wine? There's so many things that are there that we just don't think about. You said that your husband still drinks. So how has that been then over the years?
It's been okay, actually. He was really supportive. I think he probably had enough of me drinking anyway, and drinking all the drinks. Yeah, he was. He's really supportive. And really, it made me think maybe I was a bit more of the instigator there, because he will have a couple of beers, not every night. And because I'm not drinking as well, I think that shines the light, doesn't it? A little bit. So he's more aware of his drinking now. And he might have a couple of beers and a glass of wine with dinner, but it literally is a glass of wine. So for him, he's able to, I didn't really have much of an off switch. I would rarely just have one glass of wine. It would always be kind of 2 or 3, or sometimes 4. So it just shows you the difference there, really. I mean, yeah, occasionally he does get on my nerves if he's had a few too many beers. You get to that point where you think, oh, well, just fall asleep now, please. Not very often, not very often. But sometimes it's tough, I'm not going to lie, because I am looking at the research often. I'm really interested in the research side of the effects of alcohol on the body and the brain. And that can be tough sometimes, because even small amounts of alcohol now, they do have a huge effect. So sometimes that can be tough, because obviously it's somebody that you love and care for, and you want the best for them, but you just have to manage that.
Yeah, and as you say, he, as long as he's supportive, then you can't really ask for anything else, because you're doing it for you, and you can't make anybody not drink if they're not ready to do it. So
absolutely, I'm fully aware of that. Yeah.
It's
If
just
anything, it would make someone dig their heels in.
Exactly.
And you've got to do it when you're ready. You've got to be the one that's unhappy with it. You need to be ready. But it works. Fortunately, it works. What about your husband, Dupe? Does he drink?
He did. He was drinking when I stopped. Yeah, he was drinking, and probably drinking more than me. He thinks I didn't drink very much, really, in the grand scheme of it, which is quite funny. We did an episode. I think he was on the second episode of this podcast, and it was fascinating, sort of hearing his side of the story. But then when I just gone past my second year alcohol free, and about a week later, he said, "That's it. I'm not doing it. I'm not drinking." So he's not drunk for a while now.
Wow.
Yeah, so it'll be a year and a half or so. So yeah, and it's amazing. I think you end up rubbing off on people, don't you? So I'd probably say that your husband's seeing you and he's watching you, and he may come to a point where he'll go, actually, enough's enough. I don't need it. So we'll see.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm intrigued with that. It's interesting, isn't it, Don?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've had a different experience.
Tell us your experience.
Well, I'm single again, because my partner loves to drink, and unfortunately, because my boundaries and my values have really got solid and they've changed, I don't actually think I had any solid boundaries or values before when I was drinking. So I feel that now I know myself better than I've ever known myself, and I know what I want in my life and what I don't want, and what's my negotiables and what's my non-negotiables. And I just felt that I wasn't getting what I wanted from the relationship. I want to find adventure and have fun and find ways of having fun without alcohol, whereas his life involves with alcohol. Don't think he can, not being nasty to him because he's a lovely person, but if there was a bar there, he'd be there getting a beer. He's been brought up with alcohol around him, And to be honest, he did say, and it was his words, that he thinks he'd be bored if he didn't drink. So obviously that's not aligning with who I am now. So yeah, unfortunately, I had to make that decision. And it's been hard because this is the first sober breakup I've ever had where literally I've not been numbing and distracting myself. So it's been very raw, but very empowering because I've been able to really access and allow myself to feel. Yeah, it's been a real journey, shall we say. And yeah, again, it's another thing that's come into my life through being sober. And I came off my antidepressants last year as well. So I literally am feeling all the feels. It's been a real roller coaster. So he did cut down, but there was a few slip ups. And I think that's what it was. It showed me that actually, I think I was probably holding him back. We used to be together when we were a lot younger, you see, and we used to go raving together and dancing. And I think he still loves all of that. And yeah, it changes when you're not drinking. I can't go to a nightclub and dance like I used to. I get tired now. I'm up early for the gym. I'm exercising a lot because health's really important to me and I love it. So nighttime comes, I'm absolutely shattered. So I could probably do 2 hours max, but there's no chance that I would be able to have the stamina that I used to. But also, do I want to be in a club where, and I'm not being funny, but lots of pissed up people and probably taking other things as well? I don't. It just doesn't align with me anymore. So yeah.
It's interesting. You might, sorry, I'm interrupting now, but you might not enjoy that. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do that every week. But when I went to my goddaughter's hen do, I wasn't dreading it. I was really looking forward to it. I couldn't wait to see her on her hen do. I couldn't wait to see her get married. And I just kind of thought, it's not about me, it's about her. And I wanted to be with her. Her mum is one of my best friends and our other friends that were there. And we had an amazing few days. And I was probably, yeah, I was the only one not drinking. But I literally got there. I was the last one to arrive. I got into the villa. I jumped straight in the pool with my clothes on. And we all just hit it off from then on. And I managed to go till 2 o'clock in the morning. I was really proud of myself there. I managed to keep going and boogie till 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'd already prepped everyone. I'd said, look, when I'm ready to go, I'm off. I don't expect anyone to come home with me. I'll see you at home. Hope don't wake me up. And I think they all came back about an hour later anyway. But the thing is, you don't want that old routine. But if you're put in a situation where you go and do something in a different setting when you are sober, it's amazing how you surprise yourself that you're actually going to do something that you really want to do and you can enjoy yourself being sober. It's not a routine that you would want to do every week.
Yeah, it's really funny because I think you probably would agree with me, but I remember when I was drinking, I used to think people that didn't drink were boring or that they had something to hide or they'd obviously hit rock bottom and there'd been some sort of
some
issue
sort of
or
problem.
whatever. Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. It's about the company. When you actually take a step back and think, what was it about the event? And we always think it's the booze, but actually it's the people you're with and the fact that you were with your best friend and your goddaughter. That was a special moment. And so of course you're going to just enjoy it. And a lot of people say, well, will I be able to dance if I don't drink? Will I be able to enjoy myself? Yes, the answer is yes. You can absolutely do all of those
stumble around
things.
as much.
Yeah, exactly. You won't fall over. So I think it is, again, it's all about perception, it's about identity and what we've been used to, but there's no reason why you can't do it. I always talk about prepping and planning ahead for all these things. So again, remember your why when you go out and do those things and are in those situations and think about what it is you want to achieve by the end of it. And I imagine for you it was, I want to have a good time, I want to show my goddaughter that I care and that I'm still here even though I'm not drinking, I'm the only one who isn't. And you fulfilled that. And then you had a plan because then you said, well, I'm going to let them know that I might be gone and I'll go home early. So you've prepped ahead and then you'd achieved what you wanted to achieve and you've got really great memories. And so I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves that because we build it up in our heads, especially with alcohol-free firsts or things that are just different to our normal routine, that it's either going to be awful or it's just going to be really stressful. And it doesn't have to be. It's about knowing exactly what will work, what won't work for you, but then still going all in and creating these new memories, which is so important as we go through this journey. And Donna, I loved what you talked about when it came to boundaries and emotions, because ultimately, I don't think anyone gets this, and I certainly didn't get it when I was drinking, but people drink to either create a feeling or to escape from a feeling. That's fundamentally what it is. And you talked about how you're not numbing, how you are now so much more aware of your boundaries, your non-negotiables, what you want, what you don't want. And then also the fact that actually you have to sit in those emotions, and you're having to go through this experience with your partner and splitting up and really feeling the feels without anything, with no substance. So how have you managed to do that, and how has that worked for you? Because you're obviously doing a really great job and you're still smiling and you're getting on with it, but how, maybe practically for the person listening, how have you managed to really know those values and manage those emotions?
Literally, honestly, at the beginning, I would just allow myself, if I wanted to cry, I would just cry. I let it out, and I just knew it was part of the process. I'd write a lot down in my journal. So how was I feeling? Why was I feeling? Because I still get moments where I miss him, of course. So I question that. So I'll write in my journal, what parts of it do I miss? Is it him that I miss, or is it having somebody there? It's really delving into it. So I coach myself. It's great, really, because I've got the tools that I'd give other people. So I do it for myself. So that's really helped me. So I've just allowed myself to feel whatever emotion comes in. And if I feel sad, that's fine. I feel sad. A breakup's not nice. When you've been with someone for a long time and you're used to speaking to them every day and all the time, and the connection again, isn't it? That connection piece. So I feel like I've come out the other side a lot quicker, because it's only been a couple of months, but because I've allowed myself to feel and heal, I've come out quicker. So I don't think I've ever truly, with any other relationship breakup, properly healed from it, because I've not allowed myself to think about it. I've just blocked it and literally distracted and moved on quick in another relationship, which obviously wasn't aligned with where I should be. I feel like your vibration as well, whatever your vibrational energy is, you attract that. So I'm hoping the next one, when he comes along, because I've worked on myself so goddamn hard and my personal growth, I feel like is expanded, they'll be on the same level as me. Yeah. That is what I'm manifesting right now.
Absolutely. And you're right. And it will happen. It will happen. And I love the phrase you use. You've allowed yourself to feel and heal. And so many people, so many of us just don't, right? Things happen. You think, okay, it happened. It was shit. I'm just going to keep going. And it isn't, and you don't actually give yourself the chance to feel and heal. So I think that's amazing. So all credit to you for doing that in such a short space of time as well. That's fantastic. Yeah.
And it's been very fast. But even today I've had feelings of missing that person. But I just think it's a natural thing, isn't it? When somebody's been in your life for so long, you're going to miss them. And is it for the right reasons? I think it was Sober Dave said something about relationships. A breakup in a relationship is very much like a breakup with alcohol. And you fantasize about the good times. And I always remember that, because I think, yeah, sometimes you can fantasize about the good times and not remember why you are where you are. So I've been doing that as well, and just like questioning things, and it's been really empowering, to be honest. I've quite enjoyed it in a real sick way. It's been really healing, and really, like I said, I've never done it before. So as much as it's been a roller coaster of emotions, it's been quite good for me, really.
Yeah, amazing. I think that's great. And yeah, and it is just sitting in those emotions then, isn't it? There's nothing else. There's no real tip. It's actually letting those emotions wash over you and knowing it will pass, and then actually feeling the feels and crying as you need to and writing it down. And they're all really good tips. So yeah, thank you.
It's a little bit like in that first year when you do stop drinking, it's all your new experiences, it's all your firsts, and you're experiencing this as a first, aren't you?
Because it pulls you back a little bit, makes you question yourself, and it's made me question my drinking. The thought of, has my relationship really ended because of alcohol? Because in effect, that is what it feels like to me. And it has made me think about things and question myself about, oh, if I went back to the old me, but I not a chance. I like who I am. And I not just like, I love who I am, and I love my new identity. And I feel so much better. So why would I ever even contemplate going back and just for it to allow a relationship to work? I just, no. No.
And not many people can say that, because again, I think one of the things I find, I'm sure you'll probably find the same with clients, you ask them, what do you really want? They don't really know, early days. And then you also ask, do you believe you love yourself? And again, it's not something people really feel that they do, or they haven't really given it thought. And so for you to be able to say, I love myself and I love my new identity, and that's all it is. All any behavioral change is identity. And if you can really think about the purpose, the why, and then that you can work on your identity, that will then cause everything else to change, and all your behaviors and actions and all of that. So it sounds like you've done so much work, and you should be really proud of yourself in terms of where you are now. So I'd love to talk about your podcast, because that's obviously brought you together. So why don't you maybe talk a little bit about that and how that came about?
Hey, come on, Don, let's talk over each other like we do on the podcast.
Go on, so you go first.
No, you go. All right then. Yeah, it was amazing. It was Donna's idea, and we had kept in touch after we'd done our sober coaching together. And Don just came and said, I want to do a podcast. Do you fancy doing a podcast with me? I laughed, honestly, laughed out loud, because me and technology don't really go very well. But we've made it work, haven't we, Don? And with the Sober Coaches podcast was born early this year. So I think we did our first one in January, and we've been doing one a week ever since. Do you do yours weekly, Dupe?
Yeah, it's weekly. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great, actually. It's really been nice to work together, because you can feel a little bit lonely sometimes when you're working on the sober coaching. And I have another job. I do the yoga teaching, but with the sober coaching, it's really nice to bounce off someone else and have someone that you're speaking to weekly, because obviously we're talking about the podcast. There's so many topics to bring to light. You could just go on and on and on. And I think we will, won't we, Don?
Definitely. I think we bounce off each other, don't we? Because I'm quite high energy and I talk fast. I think I've got ADHD undiagnosed personally. My son's got it, so it's hereditary. So I was saying to Zoe, I definitely think I have it. And when I was doing thinking about the podcast, I just know that Zoe, I remember her energy, and I just thought she'd be a great person to do it with. And you just bounce ideas off each other, don't we? It just seems to work nicely. I love it. I can ask you questions and you're always there.
Yeah, we support each other. It's really nice. And we do feel like, I mean, Donna, thank God, does a lot of the techno stuff, because if ever she goes on holiday, we might have to have a week off. But no, it's really good fun. I really enjoy it. And the response has been great, actually. It's really, really surprised me. I thought we'd just get our family listening to us. But we don't. We get a really nice following. We've got a Facebook page that's linked with the podcast, so we can post things on there that we've discussed, and it's really nice, actually. It's been going for not even 6 months, actually, and it's got a nice feel about it. So I think we'll carry on, shall we, Don?
I think we should.
That's so great. Wonderful. And you touched on exercise and health. So I thought maybe we'd talk a bit about that. And Zoe, with your yoga training, and Donna, you were saying you do a lot of exercise and you're conscious of health. Maybe we talk a bit about that side. How has that changed since you stopped drinking?
God, loads for me. Honestly, I've never been an early bird at all. And I get up to my local gym and I'm down to the class for 6:30 in the morning, 4 times a week.
Wow.
And I'm doing a 10K next Sunday. So
Yay, congratulations.
So
Amazing.
phenomenal. And it's really helped with my own mental health. The food side could be better because I've eaten lots of chocolate. I've been helping the kids, even though they've not needed or wanted help. I keep dipping in. I do find the sugar for me, exercising, I have no problem with. I can do that and I love it. But yeah, I'd have a sweet tooth. So I can eat well, but I do like my chocolate. So that's something I'm working on. But exercise and health for me is vital, and it's helped me. It's helped with the clarity and the headspace. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's something that people, again, when you think about fitness, so many people think about exercise in the gym as a vanity thing, and it's about losing weight and everything else. But for me, it has absolutely been the mental health side as well as the physical health. And I don't think people really put the two together, but certainly running, that really is a great way to clear your head and to think and to breathe, and you almost get into a bit of a meditative state when you run for a longer periods of time. And I think that's just so helpful in terms of getting those, the dopamine hit, the serotonin, etc., which is what you would get from alcohol but in a healthier way. So yeah, no, that's fab. And Zoe, tell us all about what's happened with you since you stopped drinking health wise.
Well, I love my running as well, Dupe. I really do. And I started the couched 5K, so I didn't lose weight straight away. I think I didn't really focus on that. I couldn't one thing at a time, really. And I wouldn't say I was majorly overweight, but after about a year of stopping the booze, I did lose weight without even realizing. And I think it's just because you've taken that piece out, you've ditched those extra calories. Sometimes you're replacing them. You can get a bit of a sugar head on, but I think what you do exercise wise really starts to benefit your body because you're not putting the alcohol in as well. And that's the thing, because I've always done a lot of exercise for my mental health. And I have to say, where I haven't been feeling great the last week, I haven't been running. So I haven't ran since I did oh no, that's a lie. I have had one run since I did a half marathon a couple of weeks ago. That was my second half marathon. And I trained for the London Marathon last year, but I was injured. But I do love my running. I did the couch to 5K. Was I still drinking then? I'm trying to think now. No, I think I had stopped at that point because that was during lockdown. And my sister was doing it. So I started the couch to 5K with her. And yeah, I just carried on. So I haven't actually ran a marathon yet, because I know you've done a couple of marathons, haven't you now?
I've done one. I am doing the London Marathon in 3 weeks. Yeah, the second one. So the second one, yeah, I did it last year, and I'll be doing it again.
Good luck for that. Wow, amazing.
Thank you.
So I've done the Cambridge half marathon, and I just did a local half marathon recently, and it was lovely actually with my running group. So we all waited for each other. But yeah, I would say definitely the mental health side of it with the running or anything that you choose to do is massive. Yeah. And I do notice that if I'm injured or if I have a break for anything, I really notice that. So that's important to me. But also the yoga for me is it complements the running. Running doesn't complement yoga, but yoga complements running. I always say this because everything tightens up when you run. So your hips are pretty tight. So it doesn't always complement the yoga. But for me, yeah, I love both. So I'll do both. But I think you have to find the right teacher with yoga. And when I did find the right teacher, I had one-to-ones at home, and the release, the mental kind of release and the tension release of having those one-to-ones, I would just literally feel as if I could just burst into tears after each session. We have weekly sessions at home in the garden, and I was just blown away really of how that did really affect me mentally. What a release it was. It was amazing. So that's why I'm really passionate about delivering sober yoga, because I think that was the deciding factor early on, was there's no negotiating. I'm doing yoga. That's one of my things I need to do.
Yeah.
And then when I did my teacher training, the philosophy of yoga, which I didn't know a lot about, it was all about the physical side of it initially with me. And when I learned the actual philosophy, I just can't wait till I can retire so that I can delve into that even further, because you can just go down so many different rabbit holes with it. We've scratched the surface really over a teacher training course, but when you really start to look into it, it's amazing, and it does link up really nicely with the sober piece for sure. And that's your spiritual side as well. And I think talking about feeling all the feels and things like that, that can really help you to look inside a little bit deeper. So yeah, I love my yoga as well, love my running, love my yoga. And when you get to a certain age, they say that you need to start doing your weights as well, so you've got to keep everything strong. So I try and do my weights a couple of times a week as well.
Great. Yeah, all really good stuff. So exercise and health seems to be the thing. And I think you're right. When you're not drinking, it just allows you to be consistent, and consistency compounds. And that's what then enables you to do more of what you maybe have always done, but in a consistent way. So that's brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the podcast. And so I always ask, what does thriving alcohol-free mean to you? So I'd love to hear both your answers. Donna, you can go first this time.
Go on, Don. Go on, Don.
Get back, Zoe, get back. Yeah, thriving alcohol-free. So for me, the biggest thing is freedom. I found so much freedom through obviously not drinking. My mental health has never been better. As we've said, I can think clearer, I'm more motivated, and my personal growth has obviously expanded. I'm a better mum, and I can truly, like I said before, be there for them 100%. But it's also about, for me, the thriving is about me stepping into this new identity and actually loving who I am and loving the person that I've become. So yeah, I think that's what I think.
Great answer. Zoe.
Well, for me, it is seeing things in full colour. Life is now in full colour. That is the best way I can describe it. And with that, I mean, you might live on a certain vibration, but once you see it in full color, then there's no going back. Definitely not. And the other thing, a lot of the things that I put on some of my posts is clear, calm confidence with a bright sunshine in between each one. So yeah, the calmness, even my husband commented on that pretty early on, how all of a sudden I had this kind of calmness and a confidence. And that comes from within for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love both those answers. Clear, calm confidence is amazing. And just embracing your new identity and loving who you are is fantastic. And certainly, yeah, what thriving alcohol-free means. So thank you for that. So how can people get in touch with you?
Don, go on.
So my website is www.sobrietyraise.co.uk. I'm on Instagram at sobriety_raise. Me and Zoe have got our Facebook group as well, which is the Sober Coaches Facebook group for the curious moderators and alcohol free. And we also do our podcast as well, that's on Apple and Spotify, which is the Sober Coaches podcast.
Brilliant.
Oh, great. So my company is No Booze Network. So that's my sober coaching company. So that's all the W's, noboozenetwork.co.uk. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook with that. And I'm also at Sober Yoga Mum. Brilliant. Sober spelt with an ER, not an A. A lot of people do SOBA, but no, Sober Yoga Mum. So I put a lot of my yoga bits on there as well.
Fantastic. Well, is there any last piece of wisdom or anything else you want to share with the person listening? Donna.
One thing that I forgot to say was what I have found vital, which I think Zoe said as well, to be fair, was drinking non-alcoholic drinks. So mine was beer. That really, really did help me at the beginning. So I did replace, obviously, not having an alcoholic drink with a beer, which is bizarre because I've never drank beer in my life. And I still do now. I love a Corona, I love a Peroni. And that really, really helped me. And it didn't trigger me at all. It didn't bother me. And like I said, the podcasting, which I mentioned before, there's so much out there. And I think it's Sober Butterflies. I've connected through her groups, and I've met 3 sober friends who are local to me, and they've become such good friends to me. And we meet up regularly and we talk every day on WhatsApp. And I have to say that has been gold. So community is definitely key.
Brilliant.
I was going to say that, Don. Just keep the connection, make a connection, and try and keep the connection. That'll get you through.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you both for being such fabulous guests. It's been lovely to see you, and I will see you both soon. Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
All the best. Bye.
Well, thank you, Zoe and Donna, for being guests on the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I really enjoyed that conversation, and I loved what they said about thriving alcohol free, it creating freedom and being a better mum and personal growth and stepping into an identity and loving who she's become was Donna's response. And then Zoe was saying, you know, seeing things in full colour, life is now in full colour, there's no going back, and feeling clear, calm and confident. And I love that question. What does thriving alcohol free mean to you? I will do a podcast episode where I have all the guests coming together and saying what thriving alcohol free means to you. If that's something you'd like, let me know. I think that could be quite fun. But I do hope you enjoyed that episode, and I hope you enjoy the week. And if you are looking for some mocktails and you want the 10 must-have mocktails, then I will leave the link below for you to get your coffee. All right, well, good. Enjoy journaling this week and enjoy your week. And I will see you on the next episode. Take care. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe so you get alerted every time I drop a new episode. I'd love it if you could rate, review and share this episode. Feel free to tag me on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free and follow me for daily tips. If you would like to work with me, I offer one-to-one coaching sessions and have my group coaching program. If you're not yet ready for coaching, I also have a self-paced online course, which is a companion to my book, A Cocktail of Clarity. I will see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful week. Take care.